Week 2 is in the book, so we learned that what we think we know can change very quickly from week to week. I'm here to give you 10 things you need to know for Week 3. Number 1, Cooper Kupp is the LA Rams wide receiver 1. Going into the season, it was pretty much expected that both Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp were to play a pivotal role in this offense. Most considered it to be a 1A and 1B situation, but 2 games into the season, it looks like Matthew Stafford has built an early rapport with Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp is not only the wide receiver 1 for the Rams, but he is currently the wide receiver 1 in a points per game basis in fantasy with 30.3. He leads the NFL in receptions for wide receivers with 16. He is third for wide receivers in reception yards with 271, third in targets with 20, and he has a 38.2 target share, which is good for second in the NFL. Digging a little deeper, he's got 3 red zone receptions on 4 red zone targets. He's tied for the most touchdowns for a wide receiver with 3, and he has 157 yards after the catch, which is good for second in the NFL. The connection between Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp through 2 games this season has been undeniable. And the scary thing is that this is only the second game in Sean McVay's offense for Matthew Stafford. It's going to take some time. I think they're going to build even more chemistry. It's going to be a little bit before this offense is a well-oiled machine, and I do think that they will be able to produce even better numbers than they have right now. While I don't think Cooper Kupp is going to be able to keep up a 38% target share, I do expect him to be Matthew Stafford's go-to guy for the rest of the season. With that being said, it leads me right into my next point. Number 2, buy low on Robert Woods. Yes, I did just say that Cooper Kupp is going to be the wide receiver 1 on this offense, but I don't think that means that Robert Woods is going to not be valuable to your fantasy team. A lot of people are considering him a bust already. Well, if you look at the stats year over year, things honestly aren't that much different for Robert Woods. In the 2020 season, Robert Woods had a target share of 23%. He had a target rate of 22.3. He had 12 red zone targets, and he was averaging 8 targets per game. In 2021, things aren't that much different. He has an identical 23% target share. He has a target rate of 28.9, which is actually better than last year. He already has 3 red zone targets, which is a quarter of what he had last year through only 2 games, and he's averaging a few less targets per game, 6.5, but nothing that can't be adjusted with 1 or 2 games. Robert Woods averaged 15.3 fantasy points per game last season, which was good enough for wide receiver 19 overall. Now, right now, he's currently averaging 12.1 points per game. Let's say he wound up catching a touchdown in one of the first 2 games. That would bump him up to 15.1, pretty much exactly where he was last season. Now, there was a lot of people excited for his potential with Matthew Stafford in this offense, but it looks to me like Cooper Kupp is going to be that wide receiver 1 for Stafford. That doesn't mean Robert Woods doesn't have value. Last year, he was a wide receiver 2. I think he's going to be exactly that this season. There's people that are looking to cut him, to sell him low. That is not what you need to do with what we affectionately call him in the community, Bobby Trees. He's somebody who I think you can get at a discount right now who could pay off big dividends. This offense isn't clicking on all cylinders yet. Buy at a discount and reap the rewards. Number 3, fire up your Falcons and your Giants. The Atlanta Falcons and the New York Giants are 2 teams that were expecting much more out of their offenses to start the season. They've struggled a little bit. They do have the weapons in place, and I do think that this is the week you had a get-right game, and which is good for fantasy managers. There's a couple things that I like. Number 1, these are 2 teams that like to play fast. They're top 10 in fastest pace of play, and that's based on seconds per snap. Both of these teams have pretty poor defenses to start the season. The Falcons give up the most points in the league, 40 points per game, and the Giants have given up the 8th most, 28.5. As for the Falcons side of the ball, I think this is going to be Kyle Pitts' breakout game. He's top 5 in receptions, reception yards, targets, air yards, and he's the tight end 8 on the season, even though he doesn't have a touchdown yet. I think Calvin Ridley's going to get right. I think Cordero Patterson's going to stay hot. In a Superflex league, I'm not afraid to start Matt Ryan this week, and I think Mike Davis is a rock-solid RB2. On the Giants side of the ball, I think this is a perfect get-right game for Saquon Barkley. I think Kenny Golladay is going to come out in a big way. Both Sterling Shepard and Daniel Jones have started off the season very well. I expect that to continue. To dig a little deeper as well, I think Evan Ingram is a solid flyer for the tight end position if he's able to play. Unless you have one of those top guys, it's pretty much a crapshoot. he could very easily catch a touchdown. And as we see with the Sterling Shepard's success on the season, Daniel Jones has played a little more, had his targets go in the middle of the field, which is where Evan Ingram likes to live. While both of these teams have left a lot to be desired when it comes to real football, the beauty of this game is that it's fantasy football, which leads me to my next point. Number 4, Daniel Jones is a weekly Superflex start. Now let's go ahead and get this out of the way. Yes, I am a Giants fan, but anybody who follows me or knows me knows that I take this very seriously, and I don't take my Giants fandom into my analysis. I feel like anybody who uses any sort of bias when it comes to their fantasy football takes loses credibility, and that's not who I am. But the numbers don't lie. Daniel Jones has started off the season from a fantasy perspective very good. Jones is currently the quarterback 5 in points per game with 25.4. He's number 3 in air yards completed with 406. Number 8 with air yards attempted at 665. Number 4 in air yards per attempt and 9.6. And he's 9th in QBR. But the beauty of it all with Daniel Jones is he is what we like to call Konami code quarterback. Jones' 21% designed rushing attempt puts him in the upper echelon of the league. Jalen Hurts only has 20%. Jones is 3rd in quarterback carries with 15, 3rd in quarterback rushing with 122 yards, and he's tied for the most rushing touchdowns from a quarterback with 2. Daniel Jones is a lot faster than most people realize. He's a mobile quarterback, and that raises his floor. If he's able to get things going with Kenny Golladay, Saquon Barkley is getting healthy. It's another weapon that's going to be available to him. I think he's locked in as a quarterback 2 for Superflex leagues. He's somebody who should have a pretty safe floor as long as the turnovers don't continue to rack up. And he's got a pretty high upside. Number 5, Chase Claypool's big game is coming. Yes, a lot of people are disappointed with Chase Claypool's slow start to the season, or what they think is a slow start. And if you look at the numbers, things actually aren't that bad. He's averaging 10 points per game this season so far. Last year, he only averaged 13.4. The thing is, he had some huge games last season. He had 8 games over 10 points, but he also had 7 games under 10 points. So this is what you signed up for with Chase Claypool. He is the definition of a boom-bust player, but his stats look pretty good. He is currently 4th in air yards with 255, 9th in air yards share with 43.7%. He's number 1 in deep targets with 6, and he's number 4 with unrealized air yards. Shoot an offer out for Claypool. If somebody's panicking, thinking that he's not going to perform this season, you might be able to get a discount on him as well. He's a buy low for me, no question. Number 6, bench Jameis Winston until further notice. Jameis Winston lit the world on fire in week 1, throwing 5 touchdowns, and a lot of people are considering him as already the favorite for the comeback player of the year. But his inefficiencies were masked by the 5 touchdowns. Hasn't played that well this season. This isn't the high-flying offense of the Saints of the past. If you look into his numbers, things are not that pretty. 30th in the league in completed air yards with 156, and he's 8th in the league in interceptable passes with 4. Yards per attempt is only 6.2, which is 28th. His accuracy rating is 31st in the league at 6.1. And even after his huge outbursts, he's only quarterback 14 on the season. Week 1, Jameis only attempted 20 passes. He had 148 passing yards. And yes, he did have those 5 touchdowns. But when he doesn't have all those touchdowns, things aren't going to be so pretty. Game 2, he only had 22 attempts, only had 111 passing yards, and he had 2 interceptions. Until Jameis Winston proves to me that he's able to put up consistent numbers, I'm not starting any Saints outside of Alvin Kamara. Hopefully he'll get Traquan Smith back soon, Michael Thomas sometime this season, and it is possible for Jameis to put up big weeks, but as we all know, Jameis is Jameis. He can put up some duds as well. So right now, he's not consistent enough for me. The Saints aren't throwing the ball enough. This offense goes through Alvin Kamara, rightfully so. And right now, you just can't trust Jameis Winston. Bench him until further notice. Number 7, expect a shootout in Minnesota. The Seahawks and the Vikings projects to be a pretty high-scoring affair, and that's what you want to target in fantasy. Now, we know that you're going to play the likes of Russell Wilson, Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, the guy who started super hot, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Dalvin Cook's been a little banged up. He is expected to play, but it might not be a bad idea to go ahead and stash Alexander Mattison on your bench just in case he's not able to go. Seattle has given up the most points to opposing running backs in fantasy this season. Another player I really like this week that you might not start normally is KJ Osborne. He started off the season hot with over double-digit points in both games. He's somebody you can start as a wide receiver 3 in what expects to be a high-scoring matchup. It has one of the highest scoring over-under totals at 55.5. So if Vegas thinks that there's going to be a lot of points scored, more likely than not, that's going to happen. Now, I think Kirk Cousins, who's somebody who's a fringe starter in QB1 leagues, I think he's a perfectly fine start, and he's a rock-solid QB2 in Superflex leagues, somebody who you can start with confidence. All in all, I think Russell Wilson's going to challenge this week to be the quarterback 1 overall. Dalvin Cook is always in talks to be the running back 1 overall, especially in this matchup. He could blow up. This could be DK Metcalf's get-right game. Tyler Lockett should look to continue to stay hot. I think this is a game that you're going to want some sort of piece of. If you're able to put any of these players from Minnesota or Seattle in your lineups, this is the week to do it. Number 8, Hollywood Brown will stay hot. Things were looking pretty dire for Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens when their revamped offense took a few hits. Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, and Rashad Bateman all have injuries. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards both out for the year. Bateman will be returning, but so far to start the season, Hollywood Brown has been the star. He's wide receiver 8 on the season with 21.4 points per game. He's caught 6 passes and a touchdown in each of the first 2 games. And a pretty interesting stat line that my friend Troy King at TKingMode on Twitter brought to my attention. Since week 12 of 2020, Marquise Brown has averaged 6 targets, 58 yards, and a touchdown per game. That's pretty impressive for a guy who's considered boom bust. Marquise Brown is top 10 in target share, receiving yards, fantasy points per game, yards after the catch, and total touchdowns. It seems as if Hollywood Brown is finally becoming that number 1 target that we all expected him to be when he was drafted a few years ago out of Alabama. He's shown his explosiveness, his big playability, and I expect that to continue this week against the Detroit Lions. Put him in your lineup with confidence. Number 9, don't give up on Viska. Yes, I am a very well-known Laviska Shenault fan. I will bring that up first and foremost right up front. And it hasn't looked very good to start the season. The Jaguars' offense has really struggled. Laviska really hasn't done much. And the most valuable wide receiver on this team so far has been Marvin Jones Jr. But their opportunity is there, and I still believe in the talent. If we dig a little deeper, he's had the opportunity. He's averaging 8 targets per game. He's top 20 in routes run, and he's got almost a 20% target share. Simply put, the Jacksonville Jaguars offense has not looked good. Trevor Lawrence hasn't played well, but I do expect them to get things going. It's obvious that they want Laviska Shenault in this offense. Now, I'm not saying you can start him. He's somebody that you don't need to start, somebody that you need to keep at the end of your bench, but he's not somebody you should be cutting just yet. Number 10, look to waivers for potential IR stashes. Now, last week I talked about after the first run of waivers, going to look and see who's available on the waiver wire, but this is just a little bit different. There's players who are available on the wire who have the IR designation that people are just dropping and not worrying about. Jeff Wilson Jr. is only rostered in 18% of leagues. I want any piece of this backfield I can get. He's performed when he's been on the field. He's definitely a pickup. Rashad Bateman is only rostered in 14% of leagues. He's somebody who could step right into a role in this passing offense that's dying for some more weapons. Obviously, like I was talking about, Hollywood Brown has been hot. Mark Andrews is there. Whatever is left of Sammy Watkins is still there. But Rashad Bateman is somebody who could be an impact player down the stretch. Tyrod Taylor was somebody who was starting off the season very hot, and he's only rostered in 6% of leagues. This is more of a super flex move, but especially if you've got an open IR spot, you can just throw him on there. There's no reason to not put Tyrod Taylor on your IR. These next 2 players are more widely rostered, but still available in a lot of leagues, more than they should be. Michael Thomas is going to be back this season, and he's only rostered in 77% of leagues. And Jerry Jeudy's going to be back as well. He's only rostered in 78% of leagues. These are the type of moves that can put you over the top. Most of these guys are free, but even guys like Jerry Jeudy and Michael Thomas are available in roughly 25% of leagues. It's like making a huge trade in the middle of the season if those guys come back. You know what? If they don't work out, they were a waiver claim, no sweat off your back. Make these moves, go look and see if these guys are available, pick them up if they are. If you've got room on your bench, if you don't have IR spots, throw them on the end of your bench. These guys can help you win a championship. That's a wrap for my 10 things you need to know for week 3. Give this video a like. Make sure you subscribe to the Front Yard Fantasy YouTube channel for all our great content. And give me a follow at GMenJ on Twitter. Good luck in your matchups this week.